Testing, 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 testing. Let's see if we can actually get live here shortly. We'll have some fun and see what the scoop is. Shazam, there we are. This is James Maduke speaking. You're watching another live training from teachonline.io and trainingsites.io, where we show you how to start, build, and grow your own education business, creating online courses, building your own learning campus, having some fun teaching online. So what are we going to do today? Well, I'm going to first of all do a little housekeeping here, make sure that everything's working properly. We got a live feed, all that important stuff. I learned the hard way, had a lesson. Make sure that you are recording properly, and more importantly, that the microphone is on. On more than one occasion, I've done really great webcasts and not had the microphone working properly. So I'm just going to make sure off to the side here that in fact it's on. And there we go. Perfect. I got that running. That's the important part. Everything's going there. So what are we going to do today? One of the things, I'll just give you a little backstory here. One of the things that's happening is I have a couple projects on the go that are not traditional internet marketing, digital marketing kind of businesses. And one of them is my PickleBall project. And you may have heard me mention that before about my high interest in pickleball and the whole pickleball world. So one of the things that I ran into was that there wasn't really a community involved that was done, in my opinion, properly with this whole idea of a community or an interactive community for pickleball players. There were Facebook groups, there was YouTube channels on how to do some stuff. There was all of this videos about pro players, but there wasn't really a community put together that was specific for pickleball players. So I started putting it all together, and you can find that at mypickleballfriends.com. So I registered that site, and what I've been doing over the past 2 or 3 weeks is I've been putting together a complete community that doesn't focus on online training, but it focuses on the community portion of Buddy Boss, which is the plugin and theme that we use, and LearnDash, which is for education. That's the one we normally do for selling courses, but also with WordPress and gamification and a mobile app. So I put all of these things together. We've got the site ready. The app is just finishing testing. And this is all stuff that we do for companies and individuals who are usually trying to sell courses and build learning campuses in education business. But this one specifically is focusing on building out a community for pickleball players. Now, having said it's not for courses, I figured I'm still going to have some kind of education or some way for people to learn about pickleball instead of having to go and search through YouTube and find 17,000 different videos, some of them 8 years old, some of them 2 days old, just all over the place. So what I wanted to do is structure some courses and some content around pickleball and have that as something that was available to people who are part of the community. So of course I wanted to put a course together, and I figured, what's the best way to put a course together when I don't have a course finished in my head? And the answer is, of course, to use some ethical cheating. And of course, what am I talking about? ChatGPT. So I put together a course with ChatGPT, and what I'll do is I'll actually show it to you. I think we should be able to do this now, and I'll open up my my pickleball course here. My Pickleball Friends is the actual site, so we're there taking a look at it now. And in this particular case, you'll notice that over on the right hand side here, I've got one called Training, a training menu, and you'll see we've got Discover Pickleball, your ultimate beginner's guide. So it's the Pickleball 101 course is how it's set up. So I put a course together. It's 10 lessons. There's 2 quizzes in it right now. And you can see that we've got a specific intro, we've got the course and our Discover Pickleball Beginner's Guide. We've got all of the stuff in the course. All the text is here. You can see the lessons are all set up. So we've got a whole set of lessons right from the introduction, quick start quizzes, the pickleball equipment and court basics that you're going to need to know how to play, the fundamentals, the rules and scoring, developing skill strategies, serve, return, and rally, mastering advanced shots, Jake's journey, a look back to when we put ahead the pickleball adventure, and then a final quiz. So you may be wondering, where did this course come from? And this is something that everyone runs into. And there's actually two things that I wanted to when we're doing courses with ChatGPT. And here's the thing that I want you just to remember. At the end of the day, when you're looking at all of these courses, in my opinion, there's two kinds of courses. There's a course that you already are providing, but not online, or you have the exact content that you have in your head that you teach and that you want to turn into a course, but that's finished in your head. You need help basically wrapping it up, right? You need to make sure that it's, you have the gift in your head, but you want to make sure that it's properly displayed, properly put together, gets to the right people, has a bow on it. It's all perfect, but it's something you already have. And is something that people want to learn about. And if it is something that's for profit, people are already willing to pay for it. So there's a niche that you are already in, what it's about, what you're teaching people. It's just wrapping it up and organizing it in a way that's easy to distribute in an online course. That's one thing that a lot of teachers and trainers and people who are experts in their field, they have that in their head, but they're just going, man, how do I really put this together? I need some help. I'm used to being up talking in a classroom. I'm used to be at a live seminar or a workshop where there's a small group of people who I'm interacting with on a regular basis. I'm looking at an online course and I'm going, I don't really get to talk to anyone. It's just me putting the content together and trying to get people to understand what I might be saying, or I might be writing, or I might be doing in video. So there's that kind of approach. And then there's another kind of approach, which is I'm in a particular industry, or I'm looking to do online courses, but I have no idea what the course should be about. I don't have any idea for the title. I don't know what's in the course. I'm just really interested in creating online courses and hopefully selling some. I may have an interest in a topic, but I don't know what people need, what they want, what questions they have. None of that information, but you still want to create a course. And if I go right now and we go take a look at a lot of the other either courses and or information regarding ChatGPT, what you'll often find, or what I had found, is that the majority of the ChatGPT kind of information for course creation is that part about the second part. I don't know what the course should be about. I don't know how to structure it. I don't know what lessons. I don't know what niche it should be. I don't know what the title should be. It's really creating or letting ChatGPT create the actual course. Now, is that something that you want to necessarily do? If it is, you can certainly do it that way. But what I'm going to be talking about is the opposite, where I know what I want. I know what I need. I just need some help creating that content and turning it into an online course. So we're going to go over what I did to create this course I'm just talking about and the steps I added. But what's not going to be in there is I'm not going to ask ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me 10 ideas for a course on pickleball? I'm not asking ChatGPT for that. I already know that I wanted a beginner's course that was for absolute beginners who were just starting into the sport, who weren't overly experienced either physically or in sports-wise. It was for absolute beginners, and I knew that I wanted it to be a certain number of lessons. I knew what kind of content I wanted. I knew the parts I wanted to cover. I just needed help structuring it and putting it together. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this particular case. I'm going to do my best to go over the prompts. We're going to spend some time actually in the browser in ChatGPT. I'll go over some of the ones that I did and some examples. We'll talk about those. If you do have questions, put them in the chat or in the comments below. If you're watching this after, I'll do my best to answer them. But this is a real I think exciting time for course creators, because we're in a situation now where I'm actually doing a course for another client right now, like before and after this. I'll probably show you that one too, but that's a course that they have an outline for the course and they have existing content, but it's in the form of a document, not in the form of the course. And they want some help converting that information, the structure that's there, the documents that there, they want it into an online course. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing, is taking existing content and spending some time with that. So, if you know something and you want to be able to teach someone and share the information, and either with the objective of them just understanding it, or more importantly, understanding and acting on it, this is a great opportunity to use ChatGPT to wrap up the information that you have and put it in a position where it's something that makes sense for you and for them. So let me see if I can get this working the way I want to here. And we're playing around with Ecamm Live here, which is one of the tools that I've been using. We've got a whole bunch of scenes and stuff with it here. So for example, I can open up the side display, which we were on before. I have the ability to do basically the Chrome screen that's here, my desktop. We can do a headshot in Chrome, which is an example of what we're doing there. And I've even got my video pencil, which is one where I can actually do diagrams and write them down on the screen while we're working. So actually, Martin's just joined the call. Martin, if you want me to, I can actually go over the course I'm doing for you. If you want to see how I'm doing it and using ChatGPT to do it, just put a little thumbs up or give me a heads up, and I'll do my best. I'll actually go over it with you on how we're doing that one. So let me see if I can get my, what I'm going to do right now, we're just going to open up another app here. I'm going to open up Xmind, which is my map for doing diagrams and mind mapping. So we'll open that one up and I'll see if we can get that one working the way that I want. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to see that, and I'll open that, try and make it a little bit bigger. If it's not big enough, just let me know and I'll do my best to get that squared around for you. So how to plan and organize your online courses for sale. So normally what happens is when we're going through these, you're spending time with them, you're looking around at all of these things, and you have a course goal, right? So this is what I tell people. You have an outcome or an objective for people that you want for the course, and think of it this way. The objective is the things that you want people to know at the end of the day. So what happens at the end of it? And the other thing is the outcome is what you want them to be able to do. So up front, you better have some goals, for example, of, just take a look and say, what are the big questions that I'm answering? What are the specific tasks or outcomes that students want? And what are the strengths and weaknesses that I have that let me do that? So think of it in terms of course goal is the outcome and the objective, those two pieces, what you want people to know and what you want people to do. So that's very traditional. You're going to do that whether you're doing it yourself or you're doing it with ChatGPT, doesn't really matter. Those are the pieces that are going to be there. I'll just try and make this a little bit bigger so that we can see it and get it so it's, there we go. So course goal, got that done. Normally what I do after that is I tell people, I say, hey, list the steps to create the lesson. So if you're going to create the course, you're going to go, okay, I have my outcome or the objective. What is the process or the steps that people have to take in terms of what do they need to do to get that outcome? Or if I was going to get them to know what it is that they have to do, what are the steps, or what order of sequence do they have to go in? And I normally recommend anywhere from 4 to 7 steps. Not more than 7 steps unless you build it into sections or multiple courses is my recommendation. But the steps are there, they're listed. This is what I use these maps for, these mind maps for. And it's like you create a hierarchy of steps, right? So always which one comes first. And then if there are particular topics or things that need to be covered within a step, you're going to build those into the hierarchy as well. So it's always you want to do like first, second, third, fourth, A, B, C, D, keep it into particular lessons. So this stuff is all common, consistent with whether or not you're creating the course based on your knowledge or expertise. But if you're asking ChatGPT to do this, you're going to first of all have to find out what the course is at the top of the page here. They're going to have to figure out what is the course, what is a possible course, because you don't know the big questions being answered. You don't know what questions people are asking, and you don't know what answers they're looking for, or even necessarily what the answers are. So you're in a position where you really got to, spend some time and think about, how can I use ChatGPT to do that? In my case, this part's already done, okay? And this part is already done because I'm not going to be asking ChatGPT to do that. Okay, so let me just double check here to make sure that I just want to see if Martin, in fact, did do a little point here and see if he's okay with that. Yes, please, Martin says fine. So what I will do is we're going to go through one of Martin's courses and how I actually am creating, or a document Martin gave me, and I'm going to show you how we're going to actually create a course with it here. So I wonder what the best way, we'll do that one, and then I'm going to come back to the map. So hopefully this makes sense. Okay, so let's go back to my side display here. We had the PickleBall one, right? Excuse me. So we got the PickleBall course. That's not the one we're going to do about. We're going to do one called, this one is Create Salary Negotiation Course. So Martin gave me a document. It's a Word document. Let me see if I have it open here. If I do, I'll open it up and we'll actually take a look at a piece of it. So he has the content. Martin's already figured all this stuff out. He's an expert in salary negotiations for business leaders. Okay, so he knows this stuff. He's already got this stuff. So opening up the screen here for a second, you can see Martin's got his salary negotiation strategies for business leaders. All of this stuff is already here. So he's got in a document here, he's got how many pages? We've got all sorts of pages, information, references. He's got 17, 18. He's got a workbook actually on a course. So how do we turn this into a course? So here's what I did with Martin's content. I can't use, I could just hand this workbook and say, hey, here's a workbook. But in terms of value for the person that is trying to learn this, and what I want as Martin, or I think Martin wants, is he wants to be able to teach people how to do salary negotiations, but at the end of the day, have a workbook and the steps to process and a process to follow to actually make this happen. So he's got the workbook here. How do we turn it into a course? And this is what I did here. So we'll go back over to our document here. Go over to my side display, we'll take a look at it. And in this case, I'm here again. Let me just open up the document, make sure it's wide enough on the screen, which it is. So here's how I started out. I said, I'm in ChatGPT 4, this one. This is the paid version. There's still limitations on it. I'm not using anything fancy in terms of extensions or anything with ChatGPT. This is just me talking to it, okay? So in a moment, I'll be asking you to create a course based on a downloaded Word document that shares my expert tips for executives who are in salary negotiations. So what I'm trying to do here is put a little bit of context around it, right? Now, if you go and you watch or read any of the other ChatGPT prompts that people give, it's always act as if. Act as if. It's like act as if you're a salary negotiation expert. And they try and use that kind of format in terms of telling ChatGPT to come from that perspective. I'm going to take a little bit differently here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them some information from the document that Martin gave me and use that to become the context for what's going on. So I just told it, hey, we're doing something on salary negotiations for executives. Won't be able to directly access or view the Word document, so I can't give them the whole Word document. But if you provide the highlights, I can assist you in creating the course outline, suggesting teaching methodologies, engaging activities, and more. Let me know the details and I'll do my best, okay? So here's a description I set up that was used in the document to give you some background. So what I did is, it said, great, give it to me. So what I did is I copied some of the text directly from the document. So this is the introduction to Martin's document, where he was talking about things like, I'll just go to the front of the document on the other screen here. You won't be able to see it, but I'm looking at it. And he's talking about the whole setup of where these salary negotiations fit in for an executive. And is it a new job? Is it the stats about Career Builder, the number of employees, expect salary negotiations? So all of that whole portion around the context was taken directly from the workbook or the document. Okay, so I've told it already I want a course on it. It's based on Martin's information. So what I did is I said, put together a structure of the course and its salary negotiation strategies for business leaders, which was the name of the document. And it came out specifically with the course outline based on that context. So if someone is thinking about salary negotiations, what are the pieces? Now, Martin in the document has a whole bunch of these that he's written down. ChatGPT is just giving some of them to me right now to start off with. So I can cross-reference these and take a look and say, okay, cool. Which ones make sense and which ones don't? Now, remember I talked to you a little bit at the start. I was mentioning that when I was mentioning, let me just open up that document again, the map. Remember using the map I was talking about, 4 to 7 steps, required the goal, list of hierarchy, and chunking lessons into topics. So you can see what's happened here. So if we look on the other screen, if I bring the other screen up again, you'll see that it's actually got the steps. It's actually got it's got 7 steps it came up with. And then it's chunked it into lesson topics. And in some of them, there's 3 or 4 topics, or you'll have 2 topics and some subtopics, but it's chunked it into these topics and subtopics for me already. That's great. I got a nice structure for it. And at this point, we can go take a look and say, okay, I've got these put together. We're in a position now where, I've got all of my content almost put together from ChatGPT in the format that I want the course, and I've got lessons and topics that are starting out for me. And I can go through these first 7 ones and figure out which are the ones that are actually important, or which are the ones that I need to have and focus on. So in this case, we've got the ones we've got are pillars of successful negotiation, why it's important is the first one, practical skills, research homework, negotiation process, case studies, and final assessment and feedback. So if I go back and we'll take a look at Martin's book here, and we'll see what we've got in the book. We've got negotiating a salary for a new job was one of the subtitles. He's got this information here about where things fit in and how it applies to what you're doing. He's got talking about doing your homework. Okay. He's talking about all sorts of stats here on where this is coming from. And this is all of the research on where these are coming from. He's got handle a request for salary application forms, timing for a salary discussion in an interview. So he's talking about the negotiation process. Number 5 in that sheet that I was looking at earlier, number 5 was setting the stage, choosing the right time and place, presentation, how to present your case, navigating counteroffers and rejections, and sealing the deal. So this is all about timing for the salary discussion in the interview. This is the stuff Martin's talking about. We've got this set up or organized in what ChatGPT came up. Making sure you've done your homework, that you know what you want. That's the research and homework before negotiating. He's got this in here. Looking at some of the real life homework, the other ones he had was case studies in real life scenarios, real assessments of what it is that you want other than money for compensation. Okay, so he's got the same structure or pieces of the material here that we've got in the structure. So we're in a pretty good position in terms of taking the content and having this format or the structure that he's put together for us. So let's go take a look now, and I'll go over on the side display again. And we're on the side display, the other thing that's kind of interesting here is I also got a list of supplementary materials. So it's one thing to have the course content. Where else or what other value can you have other than the lessons that allow you to get people to understand what it is they need to understand and do what you want them to do? Well, we've got worksheets, videos, and reading materials. Martin has got the workbook/worksheet. He's got the reference materials, all of these lists that are already in the workbook. So Martin, in your case, what I'm going to ask you to do is spend a little bit of time either putting videos together and or audios that are pertaining to the lessons that we've created, okay? And then some activities. So this is interesting. Normally for online courses, you don't have group role-playing, panel discussions, interactive workshops. So this doesn't necessarily apply, and you're going to see how I handled this a little bit later. Okay, so here it is. Actually, I did it right here. So if you look on this part right here, let me see if I can highlight it for you. And if you can't read that, this is basically what it says. It says, this is an online-only course that will be self-study. Can you suggest a standard format and content types to use for each lesson? So I like the structure of it, but it's like, how can I organize the content, or what content structure can I use in each of those lessons, knowing that it's an online only course and people are going to be doing this by themselves, where there's not a live instructor teaching, where there's not group or panel discussions. It's not there. And he said, I'm looking for a structure that would include things like a storyline running through each lesson, pros and cons and action steps, and each lesson should be 750 to 2,000 words. And I want the style to be professional but personable and easy to implement for the student. So this is something, Martin, you're thinking about this later. Is this the way that I want to have it? Is this the way that I want to be able to structure it? Again, this can be changed if you don't like the way that it's coming across, redone, but it gives you a good framework for the actual content that is created. And this is what it came up with. So having said that, it said, certainly, given your preference, it said you want to ensure each lesson is engaging. Let's structure the lesson with a consistent format. So this is kind of nice because it's what it's doing. It says, look, we've got a format. This is what it's going to be. It's going to have a title for each lesson. It's going to do an introduction, and we've got 100 to 150 words. Briefly introduce the topic and its relevance, and tease the storyline element. And then number 3 is a storyline. One of the things that I found on these, instead of just regurgitating content, it's not a bad idea, if you can, to have a real life example or personable storyline flowing in, out, and through all of these lessons. There's a number of psychological reasons for that, but there's also probably the biggest one is it's less boring than if you just kind of spit out facts. So there's a curiosity as to what happens to the person. It's where you can step in to the other person's shoes and feel more involved in the particular story. So I use a storyline. It's after the introduction. We're using 200 to 400 words. And again, these can all be adjusted to the length that you need. The main content. And the main content, it's the background and history, the concepts. So what are the ideas for this lesson? And the pros and cons. I like putting this in by saying, here's the main idea, here's the gist of it, here's what you got to learn, but here's some pros and cons. These are things that work well, or this is good if it happens, or this is bad if it happens. And then some action steps. Okay, so I know the stuff now. I understand it. What do I need to do? So step-by-step guide or checklist, actionable and straightforward, pretty good. Here's an important one, reflection and quiz, 50 to 100 words. So by default, it's going to try and put a quiz in. The way that we're using it with LearnDash is it's not necessarily the quiz in the lesson, it's after the lesson. Okay, so we want to have a reflection and quiz, questions that encourage, reflect on the lesson, short quiz to test the knowledge retention. So any of these online courses, one of the things that you always have to be careful of is, and the tools like LearnDash stop this or fix this, but many times when you're looking and creating some of these courses, what happens is, even if it's a video, if the video is 48 minutes long, some people watch the first 2 minutes and then kind of skim to the end. Or if it is text only, for example, they'll read the headings, but won't actually read the content. If it's an audio, they'll skip and only listens to part of it. So putting quizzes in, or the content retention kind of reflections, or weaving those in, is a good way for you as the instructor to do two things. One is to make sure people are actually consuming the content. Two is to make sure that they're actually retaining it. And more importantly, I think the tool, which is the LearnDash tool in our case, has a whole bunch of features that allow us to make sure that they have to do that and not game the system. One of them is, for example, is that we can actually have the courses have to be, or the lessons and topics have to be done in sequence, so they can't skip to the ones that they want, and only the ones that they want. The other thing is we can also set the length of time that they have to spend on a lesson before they can mark it as complete. So, you can say, look, you got to spend 3 minutes on this particular lesson. That's time to read it, and then you can take the quiz. If you don't take the 3 minutes, you can't just take the quiz and fudge your way through the quiz. It's like you spend 3 minutes on this, then you take the quiz. So this is a good way just to make sure that people are actually retaining what it is that you're sharing with them, understanding it. And if you are going to do something like certify someone and say, yeah, this person completed it, they understand it, and they're doing it, I'm going to give you the certificate of completion. You want to make sure that, in fact, they've completed it. So that quizzes and reflections is a good thing to have there as well. So the next one is here. We're looking at conclusion, main points, link to the next lesson, hesitate or learn to what's coming, additional resources. Okay, and then we've got a style guide here. So another thing that's kind of interesting here is we've got Martin's document, and Martin's document has, I think there's a couple images in it, but it's mostly tables, right? There's no visual images for it. One of the things that we can actually do is ChatGPT will tell us or prompt us as to what kind of video should be included or what kind of graphics can be included. And in fact, we can actually get ChatGPT to create the actual description of the graphic that we can use in other AI tools to actually create the graphic that is appropriate. So infographics, visuals, all that stuff there, it gives us the points in a style guide, progress tracker, interactive elements if it's appropriate, and a feedback mechanism. And I said to it, I said, you know what, that's great, but I'm a LMS. I'm a learning management software. I already built in to take care of these quizzes. And I said, so the reflection section of each lesson should just include some specific actions that people take. Okay, so I want them just to, they're going to go through it. They're going to understand it. Now, what do I, as the instructor, want them to do? What are 3 things that are in this lesson that I'm saying, hey, do this now? So it's the quizzes. I know that. The activity item is do this now. And that may mean going to the workbook and filling out the table, or doing some reflection and taking a list of what your previous salaries were, writing down a list of your strengths, that kind of thing. So there's an action item, and the quiz is the retention of the material. Okay. So here's what we did. This enhanced standard format. What it did is it just took out the pieces that I was talking about, the action steps and homework, not the quizzes. And then we had the quiz. It's actually going to give me, I said, give me 3 to 5 questions. So for each lesson now, I want 3 to 5 questions at the end of the lesson. And I also want to make sure that these quizzes, and I actually asked for it to do 3 types, and I think I put them here. Yeah, so here it is here. It says, at the end of each lesson, include 3 to 5 questions that encapsulate. So encapsulate, let me just make sure I'm showing it here. So I said on the right-hand side here, I said, at the end of each lesson, include 3 to 5 questions that encapsulate the key points. The quiz questions, I even told it, I said, look, they can be single point, multiple choice, or correct order. So what it's doing now is it gave me the enhanced lesson format, and at the end, it's also including 3 questions or an example of the questions, 3 to 5 questions. And there we've got just an example, a sample lesson. And it's given me all the information in that particular lesson that we're going to do. Now, Martin's got, we broke it into 7 or 8 different lessons. So each of these is going to be 2,000 words, 2,500 words for each lesson. We've got quizzes for each one. We're going to have graphics for each one. We've got a workbook for each one. We're in pretty good shape there for an actual course. And this is what I did starting with the first lesson. So I said, okay, let's start with lesson 1, the importance of salary negotiations. So that was the first one that we're going to use. And if you look here on the right, you can see that keep in consideration, what I did is I took this from Martin's book and I said, keeping this in consideration, create the contents for the first lesson. So this is what's going to happen as I build out all the lessons here, is that each section of Martin's book, I'm going to use that as the context and have the lesson created by ChatGPT based on Martin's content to supplement it. Not replace it, but to supplement it and put it in a way that it follows the process that we've just mapped out. So this is a real super way to be in a great position where we can actually create high-value courses or high-value structured content that is our content and not something that we are just asking for. We're giving it our context, our content, and we're getting it packaged in a way that is now an online course. So, if you have a document, if you have a PDF, if you have an infographic, if you have a process that's existing already that people want and you want to create an online course for it, this is the process that you can use. And I just asked it to carry on. So I said, hey, let's get going with this. What happens? So it spit out the first one. And if hopefully you can see on the screen, it said, Lesson 1, Importance of Salary Negotiations. Gave me a title, Understand the Value of Salary Negotiations, the Untapped Potential. And you can ask for a different one. This is the one it came up with. If you have your own, use your own. But this is just an example one that it came up with. Remember the second part? We said it was going to be X number of words in an introduction. It's given me 120 words. Step into the world of salary negotiations. And again, if we had a paragraph or pieces that we want in the document, all we need to do is give it to ChatGPT and put it into this. Then we've got storyline. Here we go. Apparently, I am looking for a salary enhancement because it says here, in number 3, it says, meet James, a freshly graduated professional stepping into the corporate world. So it's used my name. It's used me as an example in the storyline. Doesn't have to be. We can have anyone that we happens to go, but it's got a personal story or an example of someone actually going through the process. Now, this one's interesting because watch what happens here. It's doing some context on the first day of your friend's Anna, who's joining the same role. And this answer that it gave, I felt wasn't necessarily appropriate for more senior executives or top professionals. So I was looking at this. It spit out all the main content, the background, core concepts, pros and cons, action steps, conclusion that's there, additional resources. It gave some other ones. We can take the ones from Martin and put in there. The questions, it actually got the questions and the lessons. So I looked at that and I said, that's okay, but I said, rewrite this first lesson for a business leader or business executive who already has considerable experience. So I had the feeling that in this case, it came up with a really good topic and a great structure, but it was from the perspective of someone who was maybe a newer professional or a newer executive and not really a senior or top professional. So I said, hey, better rewrite it. So what it did is it rewrote that. And you can see that it's got things like for seasoned business leaders now. It's not talking about someone who's just a new executive. It's talking about executive leadership. Okay, so it's skilled the person in the story. And you can see we've got the storyline now. It's not me. It's Victoria, C-level executive with an impressive track record in leading companies. So this is a much better context for the lessons that we want to carry on with, right? So we've got our content. We're in good shape there. Action steps, what we want people to do. Conclusion, additional resources, and it's got our 3 questions. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now for each of the 7 lessons that has been done. And each time we're going to go back to Martin's book and we're going to go take a look on the main display here. We'll go and open Martin's book. And each of the times we've got a making the case for raise, we're going to take, for example, sections of this and use this paragraph to prompt for the lesson based on the content in the workbook. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat here or in the comments below if you're watching this after. You know, this takes time. And the part that's important is that you know what it is you're trying to teach people and you have a process that you want to teach people. You just need to package this up in a way that is consistent as an online course. And again, this is really different than if you're just up in front of someone at a workshop, you're interacting with someone, you're having a conversation or discussion with someone. That is a different kind of teaching. We're in a position now where we've got this micro course. We're going to end up with 7 quick lessons that may take 5 or 6 minutes each. We got under an hour for the course, over and done with, but we've got them to understand what they need to know about salary negotiations for top professionals, how to do it, when to do it, what's important, what's the background, and they'll have some personal exercises that they can do and action steps for them moving forward. And again, this is based on the structure that Martin has already put together. Okay, so hopefully that kind of helps you out. I'm going to go through and we'll do the rest of them, all the other lessons. Maybe actually, Martin, do you want to actually see it go in as a course now? Let me just see, anyone else want to see? We see it in the comments here. See if anything's going on. We can actually go put this in as the first lesson for the course if you wanted to see that. We could do that. If no one wants to see that part, what I will do is I'm going to go through some of the other things we can do with ChatGPT to really flush out the course content if you need to do it in a little more, what's the word for it? If you need more depth to it, or if the course is something that is more of a mastery course or a specific course in terms of the content where you have to get in more detail. Let's do that first. Okay, Martin, so I'll put it in the course. I will show you just the map that I have just so that you do actually see it. I'll open up the map here so we can actually see it because I wrote some extra notes in the bottom just to put this in context because, how to plan and organize your online courses for sale. This map that I did up was not ChatGPT specific. So, these are the steps that you would normally do for any course. I'm just, putting this down. Delivery options, how are you going to engage people? How are you going to get paid? But what I started to do is I added it to the ChatGPT strategy just to give you some examples. And the one thing that I did want to show you just with this, which is interesting, is these course content prompt tips. Let me just open this up a little bit, see if we can get it to be, just going to make it in the screen a little bit better so we can, actually a little wider there. There we go. So hopefully you're able to see this, but you can come up with some really great prompts for ChatGPT. and we'll just pass on those ones. See, I talked about objectives and outcomes and the right lesson structure, creating the content. The creating the content is a part that I think that ChatGPT does some additional things at, and I'll just talk about these quickly because I think there's some really interesting one. Lecture materials and discussion prompts. One of the things that, because we're using, in this case, my PickleBall course, and also in your case, an actual learning campus where you have, very, very structured course materials or outcomes that you're trying to sell. One of those big ideas is this whole notion of having something to discuss after the course. And as much as you would like to say, oh, all someone has to do is watch this video and they'll know everything they need to know about something, it's just not the case. There's always unique situations. Everyone's situation is different in many cases than what you originally entitled or created the content for, and you have a couple choices. One is that you update the content every day or every week or every month or every 3 months, which isn't necessarily a great idea. The other way is that you facilitate or allow your campus to have discussion that is built in or associated with the course material that you've created. So lecture materials is really about the content, like that stuff we just went over about creating the content. One of the things you can ask ChatGPT for are discussion prompts. And this is a really good way to leverage your content where you are having user-generated questions and user-generated content, but you are prompting them with some of these unique situations that come up, pros and cons as an example of those applied. But if you wouldn't know all the unique situations. So what you can do is you can say to ChatGPT, you just say, hey, there's a number of people where this doesn't always apply in the exact same way. Can you give me 10 prompts for discussions that students who are taking this or who are in this situation or find themselves in this situation, what are 10 unique situations that come up and what questions would they have? So you can ask for all of these discussion prompts. You're in a great situation there, right? Done for you. Practice exercises. This is another one. We talked on it briefly a little bit about, going and saying, here's the action items. If you want to actually give people exercises, one thing, an action item is a to-do list, but you can actually say, what are the specific exercise or specific task outcomes that you want people to do before moving on? And that could be things like journaling as an example. So, or spending something that they do on a regular time. Course activities, same idea. Video script generation. If you've got course material that is the text material for the course and the images, you may also want to do a talking head video with it. You can ask ChatGPT and say, based on this lesson's content, create a video script that is 5 minutes long that I can read in front of the camera that will cover these points. And it'll actually print out the script that you can talk into the camera, do what you need to do, and have it done scripted in front of you. Quiz generation we talked about. Here's the other one that's real world examples and case studies, whether they be examples of what's happened in the past or how to apply in these situations. Flip side of the coin, both of those can be done. And I touched on this briefly. One of the troubles that is very difficult when you use this kind of format where ChatGPT is creating content is that you have to have graphics. It's not enough, in my opinion, just to have static text. It can be quite long and tedious, again, in my opinion, based on most of the instruction that I've done. Of course, it may be different for a different topic or different type of course, but my suggestion is to add graphics, whether they be infographics or how-to graphics or perspective graphics. But getting those images created is a great way to add to the text content or the audio content or the video content. You can actually ask ChatGPT, and that's what we did in the PickleBall course that I did out, is it said, what images should be included? And it gave me a list of images to either look for and or create to put into the lessons. So don't be afraid to ask ChatGPT to flush that out for you and put it in a position where you are have a full rounded lesson out. Okay, so let me just see, and we'll go and actually, what time have I got here? 1:50. I got 10 minutes left. Let me do one here. I'm just going to look over on my other screen here, see what we have out. What would be a good one? I'm just going to open up, actually, I'm going to open up another ChatGPT screen here. We'll just open this one. This is, this one here is, this is the ChatGPT course that I was working on. I'm just scrolling through. And we'll go on one of the pieces that's here, which is kind of interesting, and I'll show you why in a second. So let me get to the point that we've done here. This was a long one, so yeah. So here's an example of this one here. It said, in a moment, and I'll copy this one. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. It said, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to create the individual lessons and topics that you suggested for the PickleBall for Beginners course. You suggested 7 styles of text be used, and I said, put together a standard template to write the copy, suggested visuals, quizzes, and style for the lessons and topics. And what it did, which is interesting, is it had the visual aid suggestions. So what I asked it to do in this case, I said, hey, give me an idea of what should we include for visuals. And what it did is it filled one out. And here's the actual course, their first lesson that we did. Activities, got quizzes, visual aid. So this is what it's telling me to put in it: an engaging, lighthearted video about the history of pickleball, infographics and diagrams illustrating the growth of pickleball. So I don't have to come up with, in this particular case, I don't have to manually come up and go, oh, what picture should I put in? It's actually prompting me or giving me ideas of either a video to create and or an image to put in. And it's for this lesson, it says, here's 2 good ideas for doing it. Just to give you some example ones here that we've got. This one was the next lesson was just about the court. This one was equipment and court layout. Getting started was the lesson. And if you take a look down a little bit further on this one here, I'll scroll down so that you can see it. So this is lesson 2. The visual aids it was saying were a diagram of the pickleball court for labeling, a comparison between showing different types of pickleball paddles and balls. So the first one was giving me stuff about the history, about the growth, images. This one's telling me to do stuff that are specific to the task. Okay, so here's what happens now. I've got my lessons done out. How do these actually get created? And here's what I did with this one. Let's go back. I'm going to scroll back to the top here. And here's one here. I use course 4. This is actually something interesting too, that when I was creating the pickleball course, now this is in Martin's course, it's a pickleball course, but the exact same thing applies, is I said I didn't know the best format in terms of the process to teach this. So what I did is I said, give me 5 different course outlines and I'll take a look at them. So it actually created 5 course outlines and let me take a look at them. And it created them, and I said, of those 5 courses, which do you think would be the easiest for the person that I'm targeting this as the absolute beginner? And what style or approach of content would be best suited? And they're talking about pickleball for beginners. They're talking about simple visual aids, hands-on learning, very, very easygoing stuff. So it actually gave me this course here, number 4. So I'll take a look at this number 4. So we've got introduction, equipment and court layout, basic rules and scoring, fundamental skills, strategy and gameplay, practice and drills, and closing remarks. So that's the course that was created. I said, I better go create a course. So what I did is I went into my Pickleball Friends website and I went to Learn-Courses and I created a new course. Up in the upper right hand corner you can see there's one that says add new here. My mouse is moving here. Hopefully you can see that one a little better there. Hopefully you can see that it says add new. So I clicked add new. Discover Pickleball, your beginner's guide. Which opened up my course. Now, I didn't have a sales page for the course either, right? So I said, I did this last. I said, after the course was done, I said, based on all the lessons, write a 1,500 word sales page that was not too pushy, that would entice people who are just learning about pickleball to enroll in this free course. That was the example that I used. And it created it. So this is the actual course page that put in. So that's the description of the course. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to take those lessons, right? I wanted to make sure that we had those lessons. So in the middle of the tabs across here, the course page was the one where we had the course description. We have the next tab and it says Builder. And what I did is I basically added the lessons that were put together for each of those steps. Now remember, it gave me the steps, right? The pickleball course, fundamental courses, basic rules, that kind of thing. When I created it, it also gave me a title. So the first one that I did was, let's go to the first one so that you can see that one. Let's do one a little bit further down. There we go. So lesson title, Pickleball Equipment and Court Layout Getting Started. So that was the lesson title right there. And all I did is I went to Pickleball Equipment and Court Basics, Gear Up and Step In. And what I did is will edit this one just so that you can see it. I basically added these individual lessons. And for each of the lessons, ChatGPT gave me the content. I put it in and did my best to edit it. But this is the exact stuff that was in ChatGPT. You can see we've got a story running through it. And in this case, visual aid, I haven't finished it, but I've got to do a diagram for the pickleball court. Okay, so there's the content for this particular lesson. Now, all I did here is these are the lessons. If I want to, it's just clicking a new lesson. That's all I need to do to add a lesson, and I can drag and drop these lessons to organize them so that they're in the correct order, and I can change them after the fact. That makes sense to me. Okay. Now I'm going to show you one of the things. We're just finishing up this one right here. So here's an example of one. I'm just going to look at the first one because I have done this one. I'm going to open it in a new tab so that you can see it. This one, it gave me some ideas for the visual aspects of it. So what I did on this one is we have a video from the USA Pickleball Association. So people can watch the video here, activities and drills. Okay, so we put the video in based on that. I didn't create that one. I'm using an open source one from one of the larger associations. So on this next one, I'm using the Wonderful World of Pickleball, which is a little more in-depth on it. The key points, I've got some links to the stats on how it's growing. I've got more fundamentals from the USA Pickleball Association. Okay, so this is just adding out content either that I have on my own and or open source material, other materials that I can use to help me along the way there. So that's how you can create a course with ChatGPT. There is a structure to it, and the thing to keep in the back of your mind is that this is not to create the course content for you as the expert. It's to wrap up the content in your head and put it in a format that is easily consumable online. So hopefully that helps. It's 1:59. Been playing along here for a while. If there are any questions, let me know. Put them in the comments or in the chat. I'll be here. If you haven't already, make sure to go to teachonline.io and register there for a free account where we put some of these videos in and play around with stuff. If you want all of this done for you, it's trainingsites.io. Hopefully that helps. The one thing that I will do, and I'll show this again right now, is let's help me out here with my PickleBall Friends course, which I'm kind of excited to see what's going to happen with this, because the other thing that's here, and again, this is the exact same thing as a learning campus, but we're focusing on networking and friends. A couple things that you can see on the screen here that we're playing around with. There's two things that are really unique with this, which you'll be able to be involved in. You can register for this. It's free. Again, I haven't made this public. This is something we'll be doing this week, but we're in a situation where there's two things. I have gamification set up on this. We can cover that another time. Gamification is giving rewards and allowing people to have achievements and ranks based on what they do in the site and with other members. So that's a couple things that we've got set up there. The other one that's neat here, which is, and I talked about this on how one of the ways I'm going to be monetizing this community, not by selling courses, but by actually doing something called, I'm calling it clubs. And in this case, what's going to happen is I'm going to allow associations and or vendors and or coaches be able to add a separate listing that the members would be able to want to be involved in. So for example, the Ottawa Pickleball Association is a test when I went in, and this club would allow the association to go in, talk a little bit about themselves, give information on themselves, the hours, who's the members, business hours, and then also do chat and open chat with other members about it. So if you're a coach, if you are a vendor of equipment, if you are an association, if you are a local club, this is your chance to go put something in. And we've got people who will be able to put these in and tell stories about who they are, add media, whether it be videos or pictures, that kind of thing. Other members can review them. There's an inbox and settings. And we can even set this up so that as the site owner, I'm going to be in a position to take some revenue from any of the sales that happen within the site. So that's different than a campus, but that's just an example of what we're doing on this site. And I'm 202. I usually don't go this long, but I'm going to share one thing that's kind of neat with you. And this whole idea of gamification. Maybe I'll do this. We'll do this one kind of after. Gamification is something that is really exciting in communities and can be really exciting with courses if it's done in a way that is appropriate for the customers that you are doing with. And I'll give you an example. If you are doing something that's for a fun site, for a fun product or service or community of people, gamification can be really powerful if it's in context to the type of people that are there, right? If you have senior C-suite executives and you're trying to do them things for jewels and all sorts of stuff that their kids would like, it's not necessarily a good way to gamify your campus. Pickleball people, one way. C-suite level executives, another way. They can be gamified, but the way that they're gamified has to be done in a way that is appropriate to the person you're trying to entice or encourage to interact in the community and or with the courses or the course content. So one of the things that I always struggle with is when we're building these out, it's how do I set up the rewards, the ranks, and the achievements to gamify it and put it in a way that is a perspective that makes sense to the person I'm trying to get to do things, right? So one of the things that I did, and I'm going to show this to you briefly because it is kind of interesting, is that it came up with some really good examples of how to gamify some content. So I'm going to open up this screen again for you. We're looking at ChatGPT for pickleball. I went all through the courses here. There we go. Here's the one. Okay, so here's one that I was, here's what I prompted. I said, I want to gamify the courses and quizzes. Pickleball is a fun sport with a vibrant and playful community of participants, clubs, and vendors. So remember putting some context around it, right? I can use points, achievements, and ranks to gamify the site. Can you suggest 10 ranks that I could use for the site? And it gave me the actual 10 ranks. Pickleball paddler, kitchen novice, gear guru, rule rookie, pickleball pal, trailblazer, champion, prodigy. I didn't think they were the greatest. Okay, so I said, you know what? The ranks need to be based on experience, level of play, community engagement. So I wanted to put it into categories so that these rankings, I could entice people to get rankings in certain areas. So it broke them down into experiences, level of play, the community engagement, and the equipment. And again, these ones were there. Tournament, add another one, tournament competitive levels. It was kind of okay. And I was going, we're getting close. Fill in some more ones. It said, what I want to do is do the achievements for some of these ranks. It was getting a little long in the tooth, so I figured I better know, how you get these ranks is the achievements. How you get the achievements is points. So it came up with experience achievements. It had the pickle paddler, the dink dabbler, the net knocker, the serve surfer, the smash scholar, pickleball pioneer, pickleball prodigy. So why is this interesting? Because if you're playing pickleball, a dink is an actual term in pickleball. They have ones, for example, of smashes. They have ones for the kitchen. There's a whole bunch of terms that are there. And what it was able to do is take some of the terms from pickleball and actually build it into the reward system and achievements and the ranks. It even said, well, how many points do I need to get this? It gave me the points. And again, experience ranks, paddler, dabbler, knocker, surfer, scholar, pioneer, and prodigy. This is a great way to get started with gamification, just an idea on what would be important, but in context to the person that is actually you're enticing it to do. And some of the things that are nice here is, and I'll do this in when I get this fleshed out, I'll do a whole session on it. But this whole idea of gamification is that when you are giving rewards or points, and I created 3 points. I created a volley point, a kitchen point, and a dink point. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, if someone does this on the site, give them a point. And if they have so many points, they will have a level of achievement. And if they get a level of achievement, they can achieve a rank. So these points are based on activities right within the site. As an example, registering for the site, starting a new discussion, joining a site, friending another member, liking a comment, replying to a comment. Anytime someone does something on the site, we can give them a point. And if they collect points, they're going to get achievements. And if they get achievements, they're going to get ranks. People by nature are competitive. They may not think they are, but there's always a level of competitiveness. And if we structure what we want people to compete on, which in our case is user-generated content here, we're in a far more likely situation or better off, a bigger opportunity to get the site to grow. And that's why I put this in at this point. If you do have, or you're doing courses, if you have multiple courses and you want people to finish all the courses, applying the same thing where you award points for completing lessons courses, for creating groups or sets of courses in a certain amount of time, earning certificates, you can do ranks. People will want to finish the course content. If you're doing something for a busy executive, it may not be the best way to do it, but you can use credits for something else other than rewards, A lot of times what people use in senior executive suites, and I hope you're listening to this, is that you can let people earn credits and trade credits in for something else of value. Doesn't have to be for a reward or a rank. It could be for coaching time, as an example. It could be for consulting time. It could be for one-on-one time. It could be for something else where people take those credits that they've earned by being involved on the site, doing the things on the site that you want, but taking those credits and using them to purchase additional services on the site or even off the site. So if you have other products or other websites or other tools that you have, you can actually have people earn in your community, in your learning campus, earn credits, and then apply those credits to purchasing additional services or generating other revenue for you. So got to structure this in the way that you want based on the type of person that you're dealing with. In this example, I had ChatGPT put it together. It's got everything set up for me here that is actually live on the site. So, okay, I think I'm going to bring it in for landing. It's 2:10. I get going on these things. It's kind of exciting for me personally because this stuff does excite me. This is stuff I'm doing all of the time, and I'm just using some ChatGPT to show you what I'm doing with it. And this is something anyone can do. If you want to learn how to do it yourself based on my experience, these are courses that are going into teachonline.io. If you want all of this done for you and you have all sorts of time to learn it yourself and do the trials and tribulations and apply what I've learned in your unique situation and ask us questions, if you have time for that, do it yourself. If you don't and you just want it done, just say, hey, I need a course done, or hey, I need my campus going, or can you help me with this course or create a course? That's what trainingsites.io is about. So hopefully that helps you out. Hope you enjoyed it. If you hadn't had a chance, of course, subscribe to the channel. Go to Teach Online, sign up for free, go to Training Site, get a strategy session, and more importantly, look forward, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and expect the best. My name is James. You've been spending time with me here. What have we been doing? We've been on Ecamm Live, playing around, having some fun, and on YouTube, and we're here every Wednesday. So take care.